Good afternoon and welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange, Leadership Tools and Strategies. Want to welcome you in mid to late April here, April 21st. We are live today with Dr. Justin Irving from Bethel, and we are so excited to have you in as we're talking today about purpose in leadership. As always, I am your host, Todd Greer, Executive Director of the Center Vision Leadership Foundation. And before we dig into the sense of purpose in leadership, I want to remind you about a couple important events. Every Thursday, following our discussion on Tuesday, we want to join you. We want you to join us as we go to #NonprofitChat. That's Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's a great opportunity for you to dig into the topics that we're discussing on Tuesdays at a deeper and more close level. Want to invite you in to be part of our community as well. This is a great opportunity for us to dig deeper into the broader issues of membership engagement, board development, funds attraction, and leadership development in your organization. And you can check that out at centervisionleadership.org/register. As well, another piece that's really important part of our community is the Nonprofit Performance Magazine. You can check out previous issues of the magazine at centervisionleadership.org/magazine. The March issue, we focused on millennials in the nonprofit world. And our June issue, coming just around the corner here, our June issue is focusing on giving for impact. All right, now we're here. We're settled in. Justin Irving, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Appreciate the invitation and look forward to the conversation we'll have today.
Absolutely. So, Justin, for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are and where you hail from at this point.
Sure. Well, I'm in Minnesota. I teach at Bethel University in the seminary here, and I have been at Bethel for around 15 years now, and love the topic of leadership, love teaching on leadership, engaging in conversations, writing, love research, but also some popular discussions around how leadership matters for the life of our organization. So get to do that primarily in my teaching and administrative roles here at Bethel, but love to talk with folks like yourself about leadership as well.
That's fantastic. Well, we're thrilled to have you into our community to be able to engage and to think about the sense of purpose in leadership, particularly from that perspective of the nonprofit. I think one of the challenges that we always deal with is the sense of how do we engage our mission from a nonprofit perspective. And I think purpose is one of those things that allows us to attach our individual meaning to the sense of the organizational meaning. So I'm going to start out here. For folks at home, Justin is the originator of an inventory called the Purpose in Leadership Inventory. He's done research and developed a really unique spectrum here that engages this leadership principle. So Justin, if you would, just kind of tell us a little bit about Purpose in Leadership Inventory, what it is, and how does it become usable to both the academic as well as the practitioner here?
Sure. Yeah, happy to do so. So the Purpose in Leadership Inventory is really the result of over 10 years of reading and research that I've been engaged in the earlier days, more at kind of a theoretical level, and wanting to get some more definition to these concepts so that we can look at them in a more measurable way. And the Purpose in Leadership Inventory is a result of that work. I think it probably doesn't take long for folks in your audience here to recognize that in the nonprofit world, purpose, mission, and meaning matter. That's really what drives most nonprofits in starting and forming their mission. But I would argue even in the for-profit world where, yes, the bottom line is going to be part of the purpose of that entity to make money, even in that context, having a sense of meaning and purpose, having a sense of direction for organizations matters. It's what helps people get up in the morning, to recognize that what they're doing is significant, is contributing to the human flourishing of others. And so I want to be able to have a tool that will help people to engage this concept of purpose and why it matters for leaders. Because if leaders don't have a sense of purpose in what they do in their organizations, it's really hard to pass that on in a contagious way to others. It's hard to say, followers, what you do matters when a leader themselves doesn't believe that, when they don't sense that the organization and the work they do is significant and has purpose to it. So that's a little bit of some of the history behind, or maybe some of the motivation behind why I work to develop the Purpose and Leadership Inventory.
That's fantastic. You know, as I was reading some of your research, Justin, one of the things that stuck out to me, and I'm going to pull two quotes from your research article here. You quoted two authors, and one was in 1994, and Albrecht in 1994 wrote, "Those who would aspire to leadership roles in this new environment must not underestimate the depth of this human need for meaning." And that was a really profound statement to me, because here we are, we're 20 years removed from that statement, and it seems we're now just starting to really catch on and hold on to this importance of meaning. I shared with Justin right before we went on air a recent bestseller, Jeff Goins' The Art of Work, A Proven Path to Discovering What You Were Meant to Do, is all about finding that sense of meaning. Our guest next week on the show is Gretchen Spreitzer, How to Be a Positive Leader. She talks about thriving at work, and all these kind of topics are in that same vein. And yet, what has taken us so long, Justin, do you think? I mean, Albrecht said it in 1999. You've got a quote from Wong in 2006 that people inherently desire to belong to meaningful and purposeful agendas and organizations. What do you think has been the big discrepancy here for us?
Yeah, you know, I believe that purpose is something that has mattered down through the centuries. So it's not as if it just has started to become meaningful to people. But we're gaining language to be able to talk about it in more contemporary days. You know, it's both from, I think back to the time when there were people in concentration camps. Viktor Frankl has a pretty well-known book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he really differentiated what was it that helped people to thrive in that intense environment where no one would wish that environment on anybody. And how did people make it through such difficult times? Well, he argues that the sense of meaning in life is what helped people to go through these horrendous situations. Well, hopefully most people's workplaces are not as painful as those, obviously, but the day-to-day difficulty of work that people face. Work is meaningful, but it comes with an element of the day-to-day mundane that carries along. And people need to understand why it is that what they're doing in front of a keyboard or in front of a classroom or in front of working with a community group matters and is contributing something to the world that they live in. So I wouldn't say it's a new issue or a new sense of meaning that people are rallying around. There is ancient roots, but people are gaining the language and have tools now to begin thinking about this and how it applies to the organizations within which they're leading and working.
That's a great sense of context for us to think about. This is not a new idea, and it's not something that we're suddenly coming to and going, oh gosh, yes, we need meaning. But I think you're right. I think what's happened is the sense of research and conceptualization has really powered a resurgence of this focus. So that's a great point. Now, in your work, you create a really unique intersection. And I think that's one of the things that stuck out to us as we were examining it, is you find in your work transformational leadership and that kind of that sense of goal orientation and development that goes on. You've also got a really important track that I know that you've spent a lot of time down in, servant leadership, and you're really marrying those things with that sense of purpose. And now you created a concept for it. You created an inventory. Folks, if you're like me and you kind of geek out at those moments where you can look at somebody's research, Justin's research is accessible, and we'll make sure that we have it here for you shortly. So that you have it by Thursday at least to be able to access that. Or you can go to and you can find access to that there. But one of the things I think that it's so unique about it is, from what I've seen, a lot of people tend to go and they try to play one specific concept within the leadership realm.
Yeah.
And they've got that one, we used to talk about the one arrow in their quiver, basically, and they want to pull that one arrow out for every problem, every issue, for every lens, and that's the only thing that they look through. And that's why I think it's really interesting to see what you've done is creating this intersection here. Talk a little bit about those three aspects and how they come together in the purpose and leadership inventory.
Great, man. Thanks for that. Well, there are three main constructs that we're getting at here within the purpose and leadership inventory. One is goal orientation, the second is follower focus, and the third is purpose and leadership. Now, saying those terms doesn't necessarily help to understand them. So what I like to do is back away from the terminology there and really get to what are some of the core questions that organizational leaders and followers can answer by engaging these constructs. So it really comes down to the what, the how, and the why in my mind. Every organization, every leader needs to understand what it is they're focused on. And this is getting at goals. What are the things that need to get done in the life of the organization? If things aren't done, if goals aren't met, organizations usually don't continue. They don't thrive in their future, or they might cease their existence. So goals matter to organizations and matter to leaders. And followers want leaders who have a sense of direction and orientation around goals. They want leaders that are helping to get things done. But it doesn't end there. It's not just that things get done. It's also a question of how it gets done. So some of the theories that you mentioned, for instance, transformational leadership and servant leadership theory, help to kind of balance out a lot of the 20th century managerial emphasis on goals and outcomes. And it said, you know what, the people, the followers involved in an organization are important as well. So transformational leadership even brought together saying we need to consider the needs, the wants, the aspirations of both followers and leaders. Mm-hmm. And servant leadership went a step further and say, you know what, the best leaders tend to be those who actually focus on their followers. And they say, who we're engaging, the followers that we're engaging in our organization matter, because if we care for our followers, we actually meet our organizational outcomes in the most productive way. So it's not an either or, goals or followers. It's saying both of these matter. And the research that's been done with the purpose and leadership inventory affirms that as well. Goals and followers matter to the bottom line for organizations. Now, the third element of purpose and leadership really is the newer focus, the newer issue that is rising to the surface in the literature these days. You noted this. We talked a bit about the fact that it has ancient roots, but the discussion of it is emerging in a more robust way. And so you have folks like Paul Wong and Prem Fry who have engaged this concept of the human quest for meaning. I mentioned Viktor Frankl. You have some even more popular treatments of purpose and meaning in our day. I notice a book over your right shoulder there, Bill George, dealing with True North, and his concept of authentic leadership. And even more sort of on a popular orientation these days, you have Simon Sinek. He's a TED Talk speaker these days that has talked about why it's important to start with why as a primary question. And so that's my argument, is that the purpose and leadership construct is really getting at answers to the why question. You can be meeting your goals, and you can be treating your followers and your organizational members in a healthy, respectful manner. But if there isn't a deeper sense of why we're doing what we're doing, you can end up with your ladder on the proverbial wrong wall, right? Why gets at the answers to orientation. Why are we focusing on what we're doing? Why are we aiming at the goals that we're aiming at? Why are we trying to create an environment in which people are treated in a respectful manner and followers are focused on? And so really, you've kind of laid it out in a helpful manner. It's not saying that answering the what question, the how question, or the why question, it's not putting those against each other. It's saying leaders need to answer all three of those questions. And this construct, this tool, provides a way of helping to measure the degree to which leaders are paying attention to these three areas for their followers and their organizations.
Justin, that's a really helpful framework here, again, for us to be thinking about because we do have a tendency to get stuck, I think, sometimes in the trenches of one of these questions. We either get stuck in the what are my tactics, and how am I going to get it done? And we forget about the why, or we get so focused on the why that we forget that there has to be a how that follows this. And I appreciate the way that you're bringing those things together. Now, if I was to ask you, why should somebody care? I mean, you've talked a little bit about those kinds of things, but what outcomes do you see to an organization who kind of has this sense of purpose down? What have you seen in the literature? What have you seen in your own research and writing?
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting conversation that's somewhat been pioneered by Gary Hamel out there of looking at what he calls sort of management 2.0. Mm-hmm. And it's saying, how do we create organizations that are fit for human being, right? Not just sort of the industrial era mechanistic approach, but how do we have organizations where humans are treated in a humane manner? And part of treating humans in a humane manner is treating them as holistic beings, right? People need to know why they're getting out of bed in the morning. They need to understand why their commute into work is meaningful, that it's worth the time that they're investing away from their family. It's not just about a way to make a paycheck, but it's actually contributing to the world around them. Now, for you and I, we're kind of in the sort of the in-between realm of the baby boomer era and the millennials. And I think we're going to increasingly see, you noted that your March issue was focused on millennials. Yep. I think we're going to increasingly see with millennials that they care even more about this why question. They need to understand that what they're doing is significant, and they'll actually take a job that pays them less, that answers that why question, because it matters to their life. And so, well, may have been important for those prior to us. I think it's going to be even more important for those who are coming behind. There needs to be a sense of answering the why.
Justin, I could not agree with you more. I was looking over my shoulder, a book over my shoulder here, Cause for Change. It's all about nonprofit millennial engagement. We had recently on the show Frances Hesselbein, who is one of the co-authors of Peter Drucker's 5 Most Important Questions. And they engage this search for meaning through the eyes of the millennials. We've had Joan Cole on the show. Joan has a book called she has an organization called Why Millennials Matter. Yeah. Recently have done work with Jamie Nodder and Maddie Grant, When Millennials Take Over. And every one of them, Justin, is saying the exact same thing. Millennials desire not only the how, not only the paycheck, not only the mechanistic, they want that sense of meaning. They want to bring their whole self. You use the term holistic. They want to bring their whole self to work. So the sense of purpose is so important. And it's not just millennials. I think you hit that really well. I want to read again another quote that you have. This is another quote from Wong, this is a piece from Wong's research. He said, Wong argues that meaning-centered approaches to leadership and management help to avoid toxic corporate cultures such as those that are overly authoritarian, conflictive, laissez-faire, corrupt, and rigid. And now each of us sitting here, whether we're participating or we're watching this, not one of us wants one of those toxic cultures in our organization. And so that sense of purpose or meaning-centered approach to management or leadership is so important. What does it do? I mean, you've probably seen folks that have started to make a transformation. What does that look like in their work, Justin, when they start to shift towards that meaning-centered approach?
Yeah. Well, Bill George in his discussions around authentic leadership kind of challenges the short-sighted nature of a lot of leadership in corporate America today. It's really about how do we make performance that's going to appease that next quarterly performance report that has to be submitted, that investors care about. And he says, when we're overly focused on the short-sighted perspective, we're missing out on what makes for long-term effectiveness in an organization. Another gentleman that I heard speak before, Jay Jacob from the Mars Corporation, he says, you ask different questions when you're focusing on how to be profitable in the next quarter versus how to be profitable in the next 100 years, right? And so Bill George and Jay Jacob and others are saying, let's set our eyes beyond just the next month or two ahead and say, what matters? How can we create an organization that's fit for human beings? How can we create an organization that is not just going to be sort of a warm, fuzzy place to work, but it's effective, meeting goals, becoming profitable? If it's the nonprofit world, is caring for its mission and moving its mission forward. How do we do that? Well, I think when we take purpose seriously, we're bringing our eyes off of the week and month ahead, and we're looking to the year or decade ahead and saying, how do we really make change happen that matters for our lives as people of this organization, but also for the communities that we serve? So that's one of the key benefits, I think, on the ground for paying attention to purpose in the life of the organization and in the lives of leaders.
That's great. You're focusing on a sense of reorientation here, whether we're reorientating from just the what's right in front of us to the long term, or from a focus on simply tactics versus the reason that brings us all there. You're bringing all this together, and I think that's one of the things that's so exciting, is to be able to look at and think what this can do in your organization. Okay, what would it look like if you and your role as a leader in some nonprofit capacity, if you were to engage, as Justin has promoted here, by asking some of those deep long-term questions rather than simply seeking to accomplish today's goals or tomorrow's goals? What would it look like if we were engaging those long-term goals? Now, Justin, I've seen the research. I've seen some of your writing on a day-to-day basis, folks. Make sure you check out purposeinleadership.com. Justin has a lot of fantastic material that he's putting out there, and it's free and it's very accessible. What's the longer term piece here? Is there a book? Is there more research follow up? What does this look like then?
Yeah, there's probably at least 3 different tracks that I want to be doing with this. One certainly is continuing the research. The study that you read was with around 350 participants. I've worked with over 2,000 participants now in terms of leadership tour. Across the board, strong statistical correlations with variables such as leadership effectiveness, person-organization fit, job satisfaction, organizational commitment, all standard measures in organizational leadership studies for kind of what makes for good engagement on the part of followers and leaders alike in organizations. So across the board, it's not as if these elements are being correlated with just purpose or just follower focus or just goal orientation. No, all 3 of these together is what helps to make the sweet spot of these different dimensions of organizational health thrive. So part of it is I want to continue the research thread. I'd love to see academics begin using purpose and leadership inventory beyond the work I'm doing. So have people contact me if they want to do some studies with this. I also want to see it grow in terms of a tool that can be used beyond academics, but the leader in an organization. Right now, the tool is set up for a follower to assess a leader. Well, I'd like to build a 360 type tool where there can be a self-assessment portion. There can be a follower assessment of leader, and there can be a leader looking to others that they report to give them feedback as well, to give a holistic sense of where they're at around these variables. So all of that, the research themes with academia, the more practical oriented tools, I also would hope would lead into a bit more of a popular treatment. So yes, I do want to see a book on this in the future. It's valuable enough. I think people care about purpose. I think people care about leaders doing things well and answering these core questions of what, how, and why. And I'd love to spend time writing a book like that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes out to me, Justin, as I'm hearing you talk, is I look at that sense of engaging that in my organization. is there any consultation that goes and revolves around this? I know that you're extremely busy as a professor leading a number of different programs there at Bethel. But if somebody's looking at this and they're saying, look, I get this from a conceptual perspective, help me think about laying this out from a step-by-step perspective to make this real in my organization. Do you have some how-to guides? Do you have some framework that you provide for people? What would that look like if somebody wanted to engage that next step?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the consulting side of my life and work is limited in light of other responsibilities in academia and writing and so forth. But I'm always willing to talk with people and hear how I can be of help. One of the motivations that I have behind purposeandleadership.com is to take some of the stuff that's happening out in journals and bring it into a more accessible 300 to 500 word kind of treatment where people can begin to think through these ideas in a more tangible way. So certainly there is the resources on the blog stream that people can be engaging. And if anybody wanted to contact me, I'd certainly be happy to follow up with them on other consulting services. That's
great. I really like this. The work that you said here, it's not something that's just, oh, it makes us feel better, but there's tangible, tangible research and data that backs up the fact that this is people who are perceived to be more purposeful in their leadership are effective. They're people that are bringing impact to their organizations. And I think that's one of those things we sometimes think, oh, that's nice and that sounds good. Oh, it's nice that people are cared for, but I want results, Yeah. And we get sometimes so bogged down in that, and yet we're continually seeing this movement in research that's pointing to these positive constructs.
Yes.
And showing that people that engage this positive aspect of leadership, purpose and leadership here, are really the ones that are most effective. And as I was thinking about what you were talking, if you've got a leader that's purposeful and they're caring about your meaning in work and they're caring about their own meaning in work, I'm certain you're going to reduce turnover in your organization.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And, we have demonstrated that there's this increased person-organization fit, job satisfaction, organizational commitment on the part of followers. Well, if you have those variables, that decreases turnover, that increases retention. And that is a bottom line benefit to organizations. I mean, you come from a human resource background in your training. Well, if you have to maintain an employee, it's much cheaper, it's much more economical to retain a good employee than to have to go out and find another one. The costs associated with that are significant. If people want to be working with you, if they want to be working in this organization, there is a bottom line benefit that comes along with that. And I think we have folks like Bill George and others who have argued this in the corporate environment, in the environment of Medtronics and beyond. Meaning matters to people. Purpose matters to people. And there is a bottom line realized benefit for leaders who take it seriously.
That's fantastic. Folks, so thrilled we've been able to have Justin Irving with us. You can find him on Twitter at lead2purpose. You can find him through purposeandleadership.com. Justin, is there other ways that you would like to be engaged by our followers here?
Well, sure. They can always shoot me an email. My contact information, probably you have access to that, but you could send me a note, j-irving@bethel.edu.
Fantastic. Folks, come back and join us on Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be going on #nonprofitchat. We'll be digging more into the sense of purpose and leadership, thinking about how do we access this and how do we think about growing our leadership through being more purposeful, through having that greater sense of meaning in our organizations as we lead others, as we engage and really live out our mission. Thrilled to have you in. Want to remind you real quickly again, check out the community, centervisionleadership.org. You can join the community there at register, which is the end point. Make sure you check out the magazine, centervisionleadership.org/magazine. And above all, just to engage with this. Think about what Justin's talking about here. Make sure you check out his Twitter feed. You're going to find great stuff on there. You're going to find great things on his personal website. You'll be able to engage deeper and think about what purpose in leadership looks like for you and your organization. Justin, thanks again for being with us today. Thrilled to have you back with us on Thursday. And folks, we look forward to continuing the discussion. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.